Hello, and welcome back. Today, we're diving into a major development in the ongoing conflict between Ukraine and Russia, and the crucial role the US is playing. We'll unpack the talks happening in Saudi Arabia, the recent drone strikes on Moscow, and the possible future of this war. Let's get started. Ukraine and the United States have been holding high-level talks in Saudi Arabia. The main focus? A potential with Russia, and a way for Ukraine to restore the military aid that Washington cut off just a few weeks ago. These meetings kicked off with Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiga and U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio leading the discussions. Ukraine is proposing which would halt fighting in the sky and at sea, aiming to reduce drone and missile attacks. By making this concession, Ukraine hopes to persuade the U.S. to restart the military aid that was suspended after tensions between President Zelensky's government and the Trump administration. Now let's talk about the recent drone attack on Moscow. Ukraine launched its largest drone strike on the Russian capital, using hundreds of drones. This marked the most significant attack in nearly 3 years of this war. The goal? To send a strong message to Russian President Vladimir Putin that Ukraine is serious about a ceasefire, while also showing their capability to strike within Russia. 3 people were killed in this attack, although Russia claims it intercepted most of the drones. This dramatic move aims to ramp up pressure on Russia, compelling them to consider negotiations. Here's where it gets even more interesting. The US has been heavily involved in these talks, but the situation is complex. After some tense moments at the White House, including President Zelensky being publicly criticized by Vice President J.D. Vance, the US cut off military and intelligence support to Ukraine. However, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio signaled that the US is open to Ukraine's proposal. He emphasized that both sides, Ukraine and Russia, need to make concessions to end the war. Rubio also acknowledged that the situation is far from resolved, but this ceasefire proposal could be a step in the right direction. Now let's zoom out a bit. For Ukraine, the ceasefire proposal is a strategic move to buy time and restore support from the US. But for Russia, the talks are not straightforward. Kremlin officials have stated that are happening yet. They haven't clarified whether they would accept any ceasefire terms. Russia's position remains ambiguous. They've escalated strikes on Ukrainian infrastructure and even retaken some Ukrainian-controlled settlements. Still, this back and forth is adding more pressure on both sides to consider a pause in hostilities, especially with the US pushing for talks. So, what's next? The US and Ukraine will continue to press for the ceasefire, but it all hinges on whether Russia will agree. If Russia does not back down, the war could continue to escalate. But if the talks progress, we could see a reduction in violence and perhaps a path to more comprehensive peace talks. The coming weeks are crucial. Ukraine will push forward with its strategic proposals, balancing military defense with diplomatic pressure. The future of the conflict depends heavily on both sides finding common ground and making tough compromises. That's it for today's update. The situation remains tense, but there's a glimmer of hope that a partial ceasefire could help pave the way for peace. What do you think? Do you believe a ceasefire will happen, or will the conflict continue? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more updates on this developing story. And as always, keep an eye on global affairs. We'll be here to keep you informed. See you in the next video. Hello, and welcome back. Today, we're diving into